All of us love vibrant color, but to really master color, you need to learn to pull the vibrancy out of the color so that you can control where you really want your color to shine. And in this video, I'll show you what I mean. Hi, Ian Roberts and Mastering Composition. I'm sure you've heard the expression, color gets all the attention, but value does all the work. But once you have a good design of value masses, then color gets all the attention. And so you need to have control of it. And we all like color. We're attracted to it. But mastering color really means learning how to pull the intensity or chroma or saturation out of it. How to create really beautiful, nuanced neutrals. And then on top of that, we can push color where you really want us to look. Just adding more color, more intensity, just becomes distracting. So I'll show you what I mean in this video. A couple of weeks ago, my wife and I, the painter, Ann Ward, we went up the coast to Mendocino in California and went painting for 4 days. Took masses of photographs. I did 5 paintings on the trip. These 4, all 10 by 12 oil on panel. And then I'm going to show you in the 5th painting this idea of pushing and pulling intensities in order to get a better control of color. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you at the end. So the blue is pretty much a cobalt blue and white, and it's a clean, crisp color. But you'll see that after this one, the colors start to get pretty neutral until the very end, where I'm putting in some yellow flowers. But you see that little dark mark there looks almost black, right? And it's giving you this sense like, okay, these are really dark, but that's actually the lit side of the trees, you'll see. And then this is the sound of the wind. The wind was incredible. That's why everything's moving around. It's sort of hard to even touch the canvas where you're expecting to, because everything's moving. And by the end, I'm getting kind of tired of it, and you'll see that I kind of wash some paint in to kind of speed the process up. But you'll see that I'll be painting the darks in, and this is the lit side of the trees, but a very, very low intensity green. It's dark, very low intensity green. And towards the end, or at the end, I'm going to show, see there's the dark. Now that's dark. That's the dark shadow shapes right deep underneath the trees. And at the end, I'm going to show you a number of different, that lit green there and some of the colors in the field and so on. Just to show you how muted the colors are and how by muting them like that, you can then have control of where you want to crank our attention. So it's sort of funny here. The thing is moving, the panel itself, because of the wind, is moving so much that it's hard to even get the thing right where you want it. And I've left some gaps of sky there. Okay, there I've cleaned them up. But you see this is like a gray purple color, right? Very, very low intensity. And then I've got a very low intensity green, same value, but just a little different to kind of come down the hillside there and kind of pull our attention down into the greens that are going to be sort of the bulk of the foreground in a way. And then there's a little bit more intense green. We've come down a little further. It's a little bit more intense. And that bush, that big sort of tree-looking bush there was very low intensity color, and the shadows under there were very, very dark. The sun was shining really bright, even though it was windy and so on. It was coming straight off the ocean, and really started to sort of interfere with my frame of mind. That panel bouncing all the time like that. So just getting a few darks in there on the hillside, and pulling the green together, filling in the little holes there, so we really start to get a gelled sense. And then there's that sort of tree up there and some shadows underneath it. And then this is the hit of color, that purple. It's just a cranked intensity. That's the center of interest. It's not like, oh, we're going to get into something big and dramatic. That's the center of interest, where I want you to go, and that heightened intensity, and you're looking at it and thinking, well, it's not that intense. And then here you see I'm pushing the ochre back up sort of in behind that little ridge, and so now I'm pulling the ochre further down into the greens, and then now I'm going to start with the greens. So it's all a question of sort of interrelating the greens to the ochres and then the ochres to the greens, so that everything feels like it's moving up the hillside up to the top of the painting. So this is sort of pushing these two colors together, and then you'll see that I just sort of go a little bit darker as I come down, and then a little bit darker still, and then eventually I just kind of wash it all in. But there you can see I've got a little darker in terms of the values, so it's just, this is a new set of greens, and that's coming down, and then that'll interact with another set of greens. So it's just shifting. So it's a little darker, it's a little bit more intense, but still very low intensity colors, right? So now again, it's getting a little bit darker because I want to kind of gradate it down into the foreground. But there, I just said, you know what? This wind is killing me. So I just took some turpentine and just washed the whole thing in at the bottom so that I could just get something and then just lay some marks on top of it, sort of in a shorthand. So then these are they don't look very large in the photograph, but there's sort of a series of bushes there. And then this again is just sort of interacting the ochre with the green, sort of setting up the conditions. And then that bush, had a more intense green there, and it kind of comes through into the foreground a little bit. And then I'm wanting to create that interplay between the green and the ochre, and so I sort of made them the same value, and now I'm pulling that color down into the main mass of the green. But you'll see I go back in and just sort of orchestrate how the ochres and the greens are playing together there. And this was some grasses that were really quite red. You can't really see them in the photograph so much. It's more like some kind of grass rather than plants. And then I'm just sort of pushing that color down to sort of form the bushes. And I decide in the end that actually I don't like those three bushes. They're just sort of all in a row like that. So I actually sort of pull a lot of them out. But there you can see I'm just pulling the ochres down into the green so that there's a really nice interplay between the greens that, we still get that line of ochre that says it's there, and that is pulling the line of ochre up into the greens of the hillside in a small brush just to sort of get a few of the tall, dead, twiggy looking things. And then I put in some of those little yellow flowers, and then I pretty much packed it in because the wind actually was getting worse and worse, and I just had enough. So that's pretty much the way it was after about 45 minutes. I took out those three bushes in the foreground. The major thing I was noticing is there's like the green in the foreground, this band of ochre, and then the hillside. So the basic structure is there. And there's the finished painting. And you remember I said that when I finished in the field, that band of ochre seemed to be too strong and was dividing the painting. So what I did is I interplayed the greens here with that ochre so that those two start to sort of conjoin. And then I had this happening that leads to here and here, so that you sort of get the sense that you're coming up into the hillside. And then you have the purple right from the bottom working again through this section up into here to bring us up to here. And then the center of interest is not a thing, it's a hit of more intense color right there, framed by the value masses there. That purple looks intense within the context of the painting, but if you take pigment out of the tube, say, it looks something like that. And you take those dull greens up in the tree and you realize, wow, those are very dull greens. And if you look at the greens in the foreground and you take a really intense green, like something you might get out of the tube, you realize the foreground greens are very low intensity. And yet within the context of the painting, they all fit really nicely together. They don't look dull at all. The only place that's probably pure pigment is in those yellows, but just because there's a few of them in the foreground, they just kind of sparkle the foreground but don't really hold too much attention. So pushing color means pushing it right where you want us to go, to increase the intensity to bring our attention to a place, or decrease the intensity in order to have it fit into the whole more effectively. So pushing and pulling color has to do with the context of the whole, not just bright individual colors all vying and fighting for sort of attention on the picture plane. I hope you found that helpful. If these ideas seem interesting to you, I have a free video, 4 fundamental principles to creating better paintings, and it goes more deeply into the ideas of composition and structure and designing for making better paintings. So you can go to ianroberts.com and sign up for that free video there. I hope you have a terrific month. I hope your brushes are light and true. The next video is August 5th. All the very best, and bye for now.